Hello everybody, Captain Sidaris here. Today we have a special look on Stargate Invasion, a mod for Sins of Solar Empire Rebellion. For that reason, Epytron is joining me on my Discord, the original developer of the mod. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not bad. 2 day shifts in a row, just a little bit tired, but happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Normally before we go into the main topic, I also would like to know a little bit about you. Who are you basically, what do you do in real life, what stuff you enjoy, stuff like that.
Oh, of course. So I am located in Northern California, roughly 2 hours above Sacramento and 2 hours below the border of Oregon. We normally get forgotten about because people think that 2 hours north of Sacramento is Oregon. I work at a hospital here. We're one of the biggest hospitals in the area. And I'm in the shipping and receiving department, in charge of making sure that everything that comes in goes to where it needs to go in a prompt manner. And that's my work life for fun. I mean, I like to build 3D models and mod video games, as we're about to talk about, and generally play science fiction games, mostly RTS, first person shooters. I'm okay at, but not really my style. I've been playing a lot of the new game that just dropped the other day, Gundam Breaker 4, and that's quite fun. I enjoy, going out with the family and hanging out in the woods and stuff like that. But when we're stuck indoors because of weather, we like to watch movies, and some of my favorites are science fiction, as we can all assume.
Of course, since we are talking about Stargate Invasion, I also would like to know, how did you get into Stargate?
So I think the first time I watched Stargate was after it aired its second or third season on Showtime. And I remember catching an episode and being, well, what's this all about? And then anytime it was on, I would watch it. And then the DVDs started coming out. And so then I started getting the DVDs and I just fell in love. And then when Atlantis came out, I love SG1, but Atlantis to me felt more up my alley. And then yeah, the universe was decent while it was aired. Unfortunately, it didn't make it past its second season. But yeah, so I've been watching it for, probably since the late like 1999, early 2000s.
So your first season was around season 3?
I want to say, yeah, it was about season 3.
So very early.
Oh, yes. And my all-time favorite episode is and always will be Window of Opportunity.
That's fitting, yeah. I hear that answer many times. And yeah, well, what basically brought you then to Sins of a Solar Empire and combining basically those two products?
So when Sins of the Solar Empire first came out, I was still modding a video game called Star Trek Armada 2. And that game had been out for roughly 8 years. And I was looking to get into something newer and more exciting, something that could push the boundaries of what I could do. Because in Armada, there were hard limits, but for the most part, people knew what they could do, especially once the Fleet Ops team came out with their expansion, is the best way to describe that. But I had originally was talking with someone who you may or may not remember, Lord Set. He has later become one of the devs who actually worked on Sins of the Solar Empire 2. But at the time, we were discussing switching over his Stargate Armada mod over to the Sins format. And when I got the game, the first model I actually put in was the BC 304 that was originally converted by Major Payne. And I have not looked back. I mean, I've looked back at Armada. I still play occasionally and help some friends out with their projects on Armada, but for the most part, most of my modding is done in Sins and Sins 2 now.
I find it very interesting that you modded for Armada 2. It's the Star Trek Armada games in general are my all-time favorites, and were also part of the introduction into the modding world for me. So quite interesting that you also started there. What mods did you do?
So for the Armada series, because later on, I want to say late 2005, I joined the Future Tense team for Star Trek Armada 1. So I was working on that project, and then I had my own at the time called Rebirth of the Empire. And I was the only person working on it, and not much got done because of that, unfortunately.
Okay, that's really a coincidence now, because I'm basically in talks to the current developer of Star Trek Future Tense for doing another interview, basically.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, the modding community is quite small. It's always nice.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, of course, switching to Stargate Invasion, outside of the Sins of the Solar Empire community, not so many fans know about it. Can you give me a short summary?
So Stargate Invasion was originally developed as a total conversion mod for Sins of the Solar Empire, replacing the three stock races, the Tech, the Visari, and the Advent, with the Tauri, the Wraith, and the Asurans, which are the replicators of the Pegasus Galaxy. And eventually the plan was to expand and do Milky Way races, which we did end up going and doing. And I think they fleshed out more of the Milky Way races than the Pegasus races by the time I left the project.
You already, of course, mentioned a little bit about the start of the project, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit what was the inspiration behind the project and when it started, basically.
So the inspiration behind the project was on my friend's mod, Lord Set. He had a mod for Star Trek Armada called Stargate Armada, and that was at the time he had a little bit of Wraith and the Goa'uld, and Tauri, and he wanted to port it over to Sins and see how well that would work out. So we had started there with those models, and I actually never got any screenshots of those models in the game. But once we started there with our inspiration, because I had all of the seasons that were out at the time on DVD, I just went back and rewatched everything for Atlantis, just so that way I could make sure that I got every detail that I could think of in my mods or in my models. And we tried to stay as true to the lore as we possibly could.
And when did you basically start?
We started in January of 2008 with the original Sins of a Solar Empire.
Also, quite at the start of the game, basically.
Yes.
And yeah, sadly, also more or less the end of the Stargate franchise. Just a few years after that, it was sadly shut down completely.
Yes. It is very unfortunate that it had to come to an end. Like I said, with Universe, it was getting very good and I was enjoying it, and then they announced the cancellation and it was bittersweet.
Definitely. But still, after 3 series and a few movies, basically, you had a lot of reference material.
Oh, absolutely.
I can imagine it's a little bit maybe too much for just 2 developers. Was there any help from the community, or did you have a bigger team in general?
So when I started, it was just the two of us, and then Lord Set moved on to take on his own project, Dawn of the Reapers, and then I ended up picking up Riser R1SER on ModDB. Great guy. We hit it off really well, and he joined up. And then we had a couple of texture artists join us as well. I can't remember. One of them was Daniel Jackson, and then there was one other one that joined up in the beginning, and we were working on it. And then I was approached by a gentleman who you may or may not know of, Jay Taylor PCS. Unfortunately, he has passed since the mod was originally created, but he was really our driving force to keep going. Like he made sure that we hit our dates for certain things, and then we had Ace Fighter joined up with us, and he's had been running the project for a long time. I'm not sure what the status is for him. I know he was doing schools, so can't speak for that. Then we had Necronus and .nfg, and a couple others popped in and out. Even Dolly Nick helped us with a few things.
That's a very sad part which you have in your project history. It's also for me the first time I hear that the team basically lost a member during the development. Did he at least see the first release or the last release even?
He was able to get all of the releases out for the original game, Entrenchment, and Diplomacy. And then we worked diligently for a few months on Rebellion, and I think we got a mod. I think we got a release out for Rebellion before he ended up having to take a step back because of his. He ended up contracting AIDS and passed away. But I want to say, let me look at the ModDB page real quick. His last posting, I want to say, was probably either the October 20th, 2014 or the January 8th, 2016 release was his last release before his passing.
Well, at least he saw a little bit of it. It's, yeah, like I said, very sad to hear that a fellow community member is basically dying during the project or died during the project.
Oh, yeah. From what his family told me, he worked on it almost up until the point he got sick, and then had to unfortunately stop.
So, well, at least we are remembering him now. And yeah, I guess you just named me basically one of the biggest problems you had during the development of the mod. But were there any big technical problems you can remember?
Our biggest problem, which is going to seem like childish, is was getting Atlantis to jump to hyperspace. And I say that because in the show, it jumps to hyperspace with the top of the spire, the top of the city, leading the way. In the game, you can't exactly make it do that, unfortunately. So we had to, we tried probably 20 different things to get it to work, and nothing ever stuck. So I think the biggest thing for me personally, because I wanted that to be a thing.
Which of course leads into the next question. Which features you couldn't include because the engine or the game couldn't handle? That would be basically a perfect fit, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect fit for that. So I guess going back to the previous question, the biggest thing that I think I had issues with was Stargate animation, using texture animations to make the Stargate work.
The gate itself, you mean, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah, I can imagine that this is a tricky one. In general, would you say the Sins of a Solar Empire engine is very limiting? Or is it very open to do a lot of things?
So in some aspects, it is very open. You can do chain abilities where one thing activates, then another, then another, then another. But what's limiting is you have to fill. I'm not so sure about Sins 2, but in Sins 1, you have to fill every single ship role in your mod for the game engine to properly work, or else it starts throwing out errors that something's not building because you don't have a long range missile ship or this or that. And one of the things we never did with SGI, which I actually didn't find out until much later, was that you can multi-role ships with their entity files. And so we had to fill every ship slot. So one of our difficulties was finding designs to fill those slots and then getting permission from the original artists, because that was something that I had was very adamant on, was making sure that we weren't taking somebody else's work and using it without their knowledge and without their explicit permission.
I totally noticed that you had many unique designs in the mod. How many different creators or modelers were there?
Roughly, we had about 6 off and on for the entire life of the project.
And what was the inspiration basically behind the different ship types? Because, yeah, we didn't see that many ships in Stargate itself.
Right. So for me, for most of the ships that I built personally, I took a lot of my inspiration from RJB Malachor on DeviantArt. His work is some of the finest Stargate work I have ever seen. And so most of my work was derived off of that. And then I've also got a couple of models that were designed, or one model that was designed by Galen 92 on DeviantArt. I think that's his username on there. That's the Concordia class. And then a few others were actually just creations out of my brain or somebody else's brain. Like I want to say the Scorpion was one of Riser's brainchilds.
I wonder here also now, which of the races was the most difficult to basically came up with new ships, new ideas? I have an idea, but I'm curious what you say.
Absolutely 100% the Wraith. We toyed with, we have the sub hive that was in the mod. That was originally, I think, one of our hive models at one point. And then when Necronus joined up with us, he built a hive and the super hive, which was very helpful. And then we ended up getting some work from the Pegasus project for EAW, and we've shared. From what Ace Fighter told me, he then shared some of our assets with them, which I think is fantastic. Sharing assets with other mod teams so that way everybody can get their projects out and share it with the masses is something that I stand behind 100%. So the fact that we were able to get some of that work was fantastic, and I was really happy that Ace Fighter was able to make that happen.
I wondered if you were in touch with the developers of Stargate Pegasus Chronicles. And yeah, like you said, it's very nice that the community is helping each other, basically.
Exactly.
It's sadly not that often. Often you have teams which keep everything to themselves.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. That's going to be for every game. You're going to have somebody like that, and just in general, there's somebody, I'm not going to mention their username, but they have a plethora of old resources from back when Star Trek Fleet Command and or sorry, Starfleet, yeah, Starfleet Command and Armada and Bridge Commander. When Gamefront originally went down, all those files were lost, and when Gamefront came back up, most of them were still there, but there was a bunch that were gone. And sites like Battle Clinic no longer exist for the Starfleet Command people, so it's very upsetting to me to see people withhold the resources that could lead to the next good mod.
Yeah, definitely. I also hate it when we on the one side lose content because so many websites already died, but also when the community isn't sharing in that sense that they either help other people by giving them information, but also don't give them the content which was already released. It's yeah, it's not a business. Why develop something if it's this stuff, for example, and keep it on your own hard disk forever?
Exactly. It serves nobody. And that is something that I will never understand that people have done. And unfortunately, with every community, there are people like that. And we just have to, unfortunately, move on and hope for a brighter future with the new generations coming into to modding and everything like that, and hope that they do share the information that they've obtained or the models that they've obtained or that they've built. My modding group that I do on Discord, one of the biggest things that I like to emphasize is if you have something you want to share, just share it. Like if somebody downloads it, great. If somebody doesn't, it's there in case you have an accident. If your computer crashes and you haven't backed up, then this is a way for you to get that backup.
Yeah, totally. I I guess everybody who is in the PC world for longer than, let's say, 10, 15 years will lose at some point data. Yeah, having a backup of stuff is always a good idea. And like I said, I really don't like if there isn't any sharing, if there is everything behind a wall like Discord or Reddit and you can't access it. It irks me.
Right. And one of the things that I have been contemplating about doing is setting up a mega with all those old assets as I get them and creating that mega folder online for people to access, because like you said, it's there, it needs to be shared with everybody. The biggest, I don't want to say concern, but issue that I have noticed is that certain repositories have been shut down one way or another because of the major development companies. When Sins originally came out, there was a mod called Sins of Cobalt. I don't know if you remember it, but it was a Battlestar.
Yeah.
And because they were coming out with Battlestar Galactica Online at the time, the creators got a cease and desist for making the mod. And so that killed that mod. And then I think there was a couple other ones. And I know that one or two popped back up recently for Homeworld, and I've just been sitting back and waiting to see if anything comes of that. So that's my only hesitation, is getting a shutdown letter saying that they don't want us to do it anymore.
Yeah, that's sadly the lurking danger in all mod projects concerning any big franchise. It's so sad. A big hit was just a few years ago for a Stargate mod in Homeworld Remastered. They got a cease and desist letter, and yeah, everything is gone. But I guess one way to combat that a little bit is, of course, distributing your content, your mod out there, so it can be basically deleted forever. There is always a possibility to play it. For Homeworld Remastered, the problem is, of course, it's all behind the Homeworld Remastered workshop, so it has to be included into Steam and everything. Yeah, that's difficult.
Yeah, and thankfully, with from what I can tell, with Sins 2, their build-in process for mods isn't through Steam, it's through them. So for the modding tools, there's a little snippet that says you can use a specific thing. It's called Peon to upload your mod to them, and then they will host it, I think. Yeah, it says it will take any source folder or a random structure and prepare it for the structure required for a mod. And then it'll generate a zip that you can directly upload as a complete mod.
Of course, I really like that we have, in general, that we still have modding today, but I totally get why they give us a Steam workshop and integrated modding games and everything, but I still love the root function, basically, that you have a folder structure where you just copy your mod into it and you can still play the game that way. So you're not dependent on any servers which have to be online.
Oh yeah.
It's hard if it's tied behind a network and some company decides, hey, we shut everything down and you no longer can play anything. Oh no, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when that happens.
And it happens way too often. A big example for the modding community was sadly Counter-Strike Go. Counter-Strike Go was replaced basically by Counter-Strike 2. They just basically renamed in Steam the game, and by that more or less deleted the entire workshop of Counter-Strike Go. It's still there. You can still play it in a sense, but you have to downgrade your game to the latest CSGO version to have access and to play it. I don't even talk about search functions. and other players find. No, just the hurdles you have to bypass basically to play it. It's way too much. And killing an entire community without any warning, it's a big no-no. And we see it way too often, sadly.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that is definitely something that I have loved about the Sins community or the Sins development team is that they know that their games are going to be modded, and not only do they know that, when they decided to come out with Sins of the Solar Empire 2, they hired some of those modders to do the work.
That's always good if the development team not only includes modder into their own team, but also into the design philosophy even. That's a big thing Stardock is doing there. I love their work on Sins of a Solar Empire, the original in 2008. The community work they did, the open-mindedness, it was and is still amazing.
Oh yes, I completely agree.
I totally want to ask you later a little bit what you think about the recent release of Sins of a Solar Empire 2. But before, I also would like to know a little bit about the future of Stargate Invasion. What can we expect?
So Stargate Invasion itself, the total conversion, will most likely never see the light of day in Sins of a Solar Empire 2. The only reason why I say that is because I personally don't have the time to reboot the mod from the ground up and find new team members and see if the old team members want to continue the work. But that is not to say that there will not be a Stargate mod for Sins of Solar Empire 2, because without revealing too much information too soon, there is a conglomerate of modders who have started to band together on multiple projects, whether it be Stargate, Star Trek, Star Wars. I think somebody wants to do a Babylon 5, another person wants to do a Battlestar Galactica. But we are, for lack of a better term, joining forces and creating a multi-universe expansion project hub where it has all of the generic upgrades to the game that you would want for any base mod, and then the people who work on their mods separate from that would tie in to those files. So it'd be like the same stacking feature that Sins 1 has, where you would have the multi-universe mod as your base, and then the next mod on top of that, and the next mod on top of that. The ultimate goal would be to have a Star Destroyer facing off against the Enterprise or the Daedalus, if you'd like. That's the end goal for us.
That's really, really amazing that multiple teams basically work together on different but also on the same project. That's really nice.
Yeah, it's definitely something that has sort of awakened the fire in me personally.
I guess I don't have to mention it because I also get the feeling that you are a kind of porter of information and want to share and archive stuff. But I just have the small little request that you also have a website, maybe an archive place, a wiki, something where we can collect information. That would be really, really nice.
Oh, definitely. That's something that I will look into as well. So that way anybody could go to that wiki and find the mega folder, or vice versa, like have a link on the mega folder saying this is our wiki. This is a breakdown of everything that we have uploaded and when we uploaded it. And so that way we can keep a close eye on that. It's one of those things that I've been talking with a couple of my modern friends, Captain Ben Cisco and Nerf Gun Charlie. We've kicked it around, but we haven't pulled the trigger, especially because we haven't looked at pricing for how much each cloud service is going to charge for their different features and what features are best and all that goes on with a cloud game, with a cloud storage.
Well, whenever you have a website, something to show, please hit me again. I want to see that. I also collect all the information about all the different games.
Oh, absolutely. As soon as I get that website going, I will be more than happy to send over the information to you.
Then just a few questions are left from me here. One would be, of course, for every new player out there, what tips basically can you give a new player who's playing this mod for the first time?
Expect the unexpected on some of the different features. Uh, don't think that just because the Tauri are very similar to the tech that's how they're gonna run, and watch out for the AI because they can be devastating.
Speaking about different features, what would you say are you most proud of?
Oh man, the feature I think that I am most proud of was it was early on, and it was a feature for the Concordia, and it was the in gravity well hyperspace jump. So it was after the episode where the traveler ship got in front of the Daedalus, and uh, they jumped both ships through the planet instead of it hitting the planet and destroying the Alturo device. There's a second part of the two-parter. I want to say the first part was the Lost Tribe or First Contact, one of those two. Anyway, so we had discussed it, myself and Jay Taylor PCS, about how to make it happen. And we spent 3 days parceling the coding together until finally we did one tiny little, I don't even remember what it was, but it was just the smallest little coding change, and it worked. It was so exhilarating to watch the ship jump in system from one spot to another and then attack from behind the enemy lines.
I can really imagine how hard this must have been because I talked to so many different developers out there who all had problems, including a saucer separation in the different Star Trek mods,
Right.
which is a little bit similar to this in-system jump.
Oh, definitely. And like I said, we were excited when we got it working. And I don't think there was anything more exciting than that for me.
Yeah, it's a big achievement there. Because I also would like to know what basically is your favorite ship and favorite faction.
So my favorite faction is going to be the Tauri, and that's because that's where I spent most of my time building models for, was for them. That's not to say I didn't build anything for the other races. No, I think I've got at least one model for each race, but the Tauri is where I spent most of my time, and the Excalibur, which is one of Malicor's designs, is top notch. There's a version that actually never made it into the mod, um, because it I built it after either right before or after or right after I left, just for fun, because Malachor ended up lending me his model, so that way I could make a more accurate version. And I built it, and then had every intention of handing it off and getting it textured and everything like that to the team. Um, but I think I suffered a catastrophic system failure. My main hard drive crashed, which had all of my model files on it. I remember being completely devastated, especially because I finished that like the month before, and I ended up getting my computer back up and running and pulled out one of my external hard drives, and I had thankfully made a backup after I did the Excalibur. So I still have that may or may not end up in Sins 2.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it's always important to have backups. I am also, as a content creator, I of course also lost many files which I didn't really want to lose. But it's always a learning process,
Definitely is.
which of course brings me to the next question. Yeah, what did you basically learn during this many years of development? What was something really important you can take with you?
I learned that there is so much importance to the way that you code something, whether it be just a regular weapon, a special weapon, or if you start your own game project, which some people have done. Like I've dabbled in it with Unity. I'm not going to go into that because it was almost a complete utter failure. But the coding is key. If you don't code it the right way, then your expectations will be completely off base. For instance, with the Hollow ship for the Asurans, can't remember the name of the ship off the top of my head that we named it. It's another Malachor design, but with that ship, originally we wanted to code it to where it would display hollow ships. Or no, it was supposed to hide itself in an asteroid. And we couldn't get that coding 100%. Like it was always half and half. Enemies would target it and destroy it immediately, and other half they would ignore it when it was disguised. So we ended up switching it to where it created hollow replicas of ships that the enemies would then prioritize their targets against so that the main ships could do damage.
Yeah, sadly, cloaking is another very hard thing to achieve in Sins of the Solar Empire.
Oh, yes.
So you found a good workaround, I guess.
Indeed.
Well, then, slowly, I would say we close it off. But of course, I also want to touch again Sins of the Solar Empire 2. What do you think about it?
So I've played about 6 hours or so of the actual game. That I haven't spent trying to mod it, which modding Sins 2 is completely different than modding Sins 1, from the way that the textures are laid out to the way that the models are hard pointed. But so from actual gameplay standpoint, it is extremely smooth. I have not had any lag show up at all for me, which I thought was very crazy. I've got the system that I'm currently running on, has a few upgrades, but mostly it's still a 10-year-old rig, and it handles the game like it's butter.
Really nice to hear. I bought it just a few days ago, and yeah, I only started it, looked at the menus basically, and it's good to hear that. It's also good to see in the main menu basically that they included LAN mode. Yeah, big plus for preserving gaming, having a LAN mode.
Absolutely.
The one thing I noticed, which I guess they can do a little bit better in the future, is updating a little bit the info text. If you click on certain things, the game doesn't really tell you what the game mode is, for example, or
Oh, right. Yeah.
doesn't give you any additional information about some settings where I wonder, okay, what is the meaning of exactly this setting or this game mode? Give me more info. We don't have manuals anymore, so give me more.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I noticed with Sins 2 is that when you click load game, or when you click play in Steam, it pops up with the essentially the splash screen, like the old Star Trek Armada, and it sits there and says, "Oh, do you want to play or do you want to do your settings?" Or map editor, latest news, dev journal, Steam launch trailer, all the things like that. And if you go and click the settings, you can edit any setting you want from that text file, but it is not available in-game menu. So you have to set all this either before. I don't know if it works if you do it while the game is loaded or not yet. I haven't tried that. But any settings that you want to do something, you have to do it this way. And for modding purposes, there is a line in that folder. It is modding dot allow underscore not underscore compatible underscore mods. And you have to set that to true for it to read any mod that isn't compatible with the version of the game that you are running. And even then, sometimes it still won't work.
But it's nice that they have this option there. Especially looking at Star Trek Armada, those games were really, really bitchy if you had a different file in it.
Oh yes. It didn't like it when certain things weren't linked correctly.
Yeah, they still don't.
And it wouldn't tell you that and that's the best thing about the Sins and Sins 2 format system is that it tells you, hey, here's an error, here's how you can fix it. This is the file that the problem's in, and this is your line number. Go fix this, and you are good to go. I had that problem last night. I was testing out uploading my Daedalus class into Sins 2, and one of the buttons that I put, or one of the lines that I changed in the mesh materials file had an extra comma. And it didn't tell me that it had an extra comma, but it told me exactly what file and exactly what line I would find that issue. And so I was able to go open that folder up and be like, okay, here's the problem.
That really sounds amazing because debugging is a real bitch normally.
Oh, absolutely.
So it sounds that Sins 2 is a big improvement for the modding community.
Yes, I think that it's going to be a huge step for the modding community. I cannot wait to see what mods people come out with. Like I said, I know of a few that have already started. It's just like there's actual gameplay footage from Star Trek Armada 4. The devs for Star Trek Armada 3 released something on, I want to say it was Reddit. It's a little video clip of their different starships spawning and having actual registries on the ships, like the ship name and its registry, and it was unique to that ship. And it didn't matter what ship it was. And I was like, I love this community.
That's really nice. Well, if we can have beaming now and a crew system, we really would have a new Armada.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know what the AI looks like for modding wise. I want to say it's just as tough as Sins 1, but I mean, people have found workarounds for it, so I'm sure that somebody somewhere will be able to make us an AI that can really come after people.
Well, I guess also the Sins devs will help there. I remember when Sins of the Solar Empire was released in 2008, we didn't have an AI basically which cheated. The community had to request basically a tougher AI which would finally cheat and be tougher that way.
Oh yeah, and the fact that the devs listened and got us that AI was fantastic. Like I said, I haven't played too much, but I've done a little bit of the gaming of actually gaming it, so that way I can see how everything plays out. I love the rotation of planets around stars. I've already decided that I'm gonna try and release um, a couple of map packs that instead of one star with multiple planets and two players starting there, it's going to be one system for one player. It'll be the star plus whatever like their starting planet, and then whatever asteroids and other planets, and make like true solar systems that surround that star. I haven't quite figured out how I want to do like space in between, or if I want them to be able to jump from the outer edge of the solar system to the next solar system and so on and so forth. It's definitely up in the air, but that would be an easy way for people to enjoy the base game while bringing in a new-ish feature.
I really can't wait to basically see what the community comes up with in the future. It opens the door to so many new features. It's really nice to see.
Absolutely.
Well, I would say we have all the main questions done. So this would be, of course, the part of the video where I open the mic to you. Anything you would like to add? Anything we missed?
Um, can't say that we've missed anything. Like we've covered the mod pretty well, I think, with all the development team that I can remember, and up until my point of leaving, of course, and then talking about Sins 2 and the future of all of the mods, not just Stargate, but Star Trek, Star Wars. It's going to be very nice to see where everyone is going to go with this new system. Like I said, this engine has been just phenomenally worked on. I know that they did the swarm test for the Ashes of the Singularity, which I think might have been a base for this engine, but I can't vouch for that. I know that it's a mix between Sins and that, from what I can tell. But that being said, the dev team being on top of everything that the way that they are has been fantastic, and that they help all the modders. They don't just, say, here's the modding tools, do what you're going to do. We're going to take a step back and go sip on our mimosas. They are active in every community that I've seen them in. And being that I do know a couple of them personally, like if I sit down and reach out and be like, hey, I'm having this issue. If there's anything you can do to help me out, and they're like, oh yeah, do this, 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 and this, and then boom, you're done. I'm like, oh, that's simple. I don't know why I didn't think of that in the first place, but they're very good. The whole development team behind Sins 2, I just cannot commend them enough, and I hope that they get all the awards for this game.
It's just so nice to hear that. Like I mentioned, it's so rare that we get modding in general in today's age, but having active developers helping the community modding, oh, that's so nice.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So like I said, can't wait for the future, but for now, thank you for joining. It was really nice talking to you.
It was nice talking to you.
And yeah, that's it for this video. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the game, and of course, play the game. Until next time.